Be very, very quiet. I'm hunting rabbits. Ha!
Hi, so you want to be a hunter? This is part 3. I've put together a little slide presentation because I think this is going to help. I've done a lot of the legwork for you, and so this is, just bear with me here. It won't be too long, and we'll make sure that I give you as much information as possible. These are things that I've gone through in this process, and I'm just relating them to you. By the way, as a disclaimer, I'm not promoting any particular store or state or club or weapon or ammo. So if you see any slides in here that seem to be partial one way or another, don't misinterpret that. I'm just feeding you information the best I know how. So it's about choices and about preparation. After all, you've got to know your weapon. You've got to know your adversary, the thing you're going to hunt. You need training on these things. I need training on these things to understand that animal that I want to go find, where he lives, what he does, input from other hunters, input from state agencies, things like that, about the gear you need and so forth. So that's what this whole thing is about. For example, here in the state of Connecticut, when I did a quick search, I found a variety of rod and gun clubs in my local neighborhood. These places are invaluable for meeting other people that are hunters and knowing a little bit about what I want to hunt from them, from the guys who've been out there doing this. As you see in the title, there are other sources too, like magazines and the state DEP and so forth, and we'll get to those. But this was just a quick, Google search on the internet. Isn't the internet a wonderful thing? And I was able to do a Google search and come up with just some basic, in my state, rod and gun clubs. They have their own firing ranges. They usually have a certain percentage of supplies. You're going to find you have to take a hunter safety course before you can get licensed, and very often they'll be sponsored by your local rod and gun clubs as well as the DEP. There's tons of publications out there that are very regional specific as well. Peterson's, is that mentioned here in this quick list that I did? I don't, it might be, but Peterson's Hunter was one that I thought was interesting. There was one that was specifically for my local area. So there's a ton of publications out there. The State Department of Environmental Protection. Every state has its own resources online. Obviously, they have brick and mortar offices, and you can go there as well. You can go to your town hall, and your town clerk will give you information on where you can hunt and when you can hunt, and you can buy your licenses there and so forth. But just for the record, the state, each one of our states has online resources for hunters. Not only that, but in some states you can actually take your hunter safety course online. I don't recommend doing just that. I think it's important to have a field day, get out there and actually demonstrate how you cross a fence with the weapon, how you ingress and egress, is that the way to say it, in and out of a car with a weapon, things like that. So I think the online classes are great, and the fact that you can do that is a wonderful thing, but you also need some practical experience with some experienced people. And I mentioned rifle ranges. You don't necessarily have to join a rod and gun club to go to a rifle range. This is a quick Google search in my area of different places that have ranges. Some of them are just ranges, and they're not even a rod and gun club. And there, of course, you'll meet other people that shoot weapons and get some pointers from them, and you can hone your skills with your weapon. So there's that resource. Now, what about gear? Well, clothing. What you don't see here is the long underwear and the wool socks. And you don't see the Mad Bomber hat, which, those are just other options that I just didn't include. But quickly, from a environmental point of view, you want clothing that has camouflage so that you can minimize your footprint, so that the creature that you're hunting, in my case four-legged animals, has a harder time in seeing you in the woods. And this is just some examples that I pulled off a random website for the kinds of clothing that will be helpful to me and to you. What about footwear? You're going to be out in the mud and the muck. Again, no particular brand recommendations here, just, some ideas. What are you going to put on your feet to protect yourself out there in the woods? Backpacks, very valuable to have. I wouldn't go out in the woods without some sort of supply, especially if I'm going to be out there for a while. And here's just some random examples of different types of backpacks. Mine is not pictured here, by the way. And again, I endorse no particular store or store product. I just grabbed pictures directly off the web. What should you have along with you when you're packing into the woods? Well, let's take these. Do you from the upper left? Do you want to have a call? Some people like to call the animal that they're going after, and they find great benefit in that. So you might have a call in your backpack arsenal. Obviously, you're going to have ammunition. I think there's a slide later on in here about ammunition, so it's kind of redundant, but your weapon's no good without arrows, if it's a bow, and it's no good without bullets if it's a gun. You want to have some plastic gloves. We're working left to right from the top row. You want to have some plastic gloves when you're in there working on field dressing an animal. That's always a good idea. It's a good idea to have a compass. Let's go back to the center row, left-hand side. It's a good idea to have snacks. You definitely want to have some sort of liquid beverage, preferably water. Not tequila, scotch, cognac. You want to have water, okay? Next over, you want knives. You're going to have one for skinning, for gutting that deer. Find the knife that's appropriate for you, that you feel the most comfortable with. But you're going to have to field dress that animal. And then over on the far right in the middle row is the first aid kit. I've gotten a few laughs when I've told people I put a first aid kit in there, but boy, I'll tell you what, I bet Dick Cheney had a first aid kit around, and no offense, Dick. You want to make sure you have something to protect yourself and others and stop the bleeding and so forth. You can get hurt in the woods, let's be reasonable here. Bottom row, left-hand side, maps. Good idea to have a map of where you're going. It'll help you if you get lost, just like with the compass. And of course, those of you who took basic compass reading courses, you know how to put a compass on a topographical map and figure your way out. In the middle on the bottom row there, rope, having some rope around. You get a big moose that you've got a field dress, you want to tie that leg up so that it's raised up and tie it to a tree or something. That rope will come in awful handy. Might even help you in a tough situation. And of course, binoculars for a variety of reasons, to see where you're going, to see where you've been, to see the prey, etc., etc. So just some of the supplies that you might want to have in your backpack. Well, where do you go to get these things? Well, here's a quick Google search of my local area, and there's North Cove Outfitters and Cabela's and, et cetera, et cetera. There's a whole list, and if you go to the internet, you'll find all these places that are available for buying the gear. Well, then there's required protection. There's a few examples there. I have the Mad Bomber hat in fluorescent orange. I kind of like that vest in the upper right-hand corner. I may next season, maybe before next season, I'll try to pick that up. I kind of like the way it has extra pockets and stuff. I also like the camo ones. I wasn't sure at first whether or not you could use camo. I understood there were some states where you couldn't wear the fluorescent orange that has camo because it was too climate-like or environment-like. So apparently there are some states that don't allow that. Apparently here in Connecticut they do. So check that out with your local DEP. Down in the bottom there is an example. Of course the question is, what does a deer see? And people will tell you, oh, they don't see orange. Well, they still can see a space. So you've got a black and white shot that I took from a video of the same person out in the woods, and on the right they're wearing the orange. Well, if you're sitting still, that goes a long way, but anytime you present a solid surface of something, you're presenting a mass, And that's an interruption in what the deer is accustomed to seeing. So that goes a long way in arguing for the camo fluorescent orange to help to reduce that mass down a little bit and make it a little more difficult to see. But let's face it, the fluorescent orange is there to protect you and to let other hunters know that you're there so that you don't get shot. Well, it didn't help the guy that went hunting with Dick Cheney, did it? But anyway, obviously along this process you said, I've got to decide on a weapon, whether I'm going to use a bow, an arrow, whether I'm going to use a lever action high-powered rifle or a bolt action high-powered rifle. Some folks swear by the bolt actions. They say that the bolt actions are more accurate. I don't know. I'm not experienced enough to say. But top left, the lever action. The middle, the bolt action. And of course on the bottom, if you're going to hunt birds, there's a shotgun. And obviously, as we said before, you're going to need ammo, depending on the caliber of the weapon that you're using. That has a lot to do with what you're going to choose, whatever brand you happen to prefer. As I understand it, in some states, and I don't know if this is true in all, but in some states you cannot shoot an animal with a full metal jacket round. Now what does that mean? That means that the lead of the bullet, or the bullet itself, is completely encased in metal. You have to have a non-full metal jacket. So you'll notice, for example, on that ammunition that's second from the left there, it's got poly tips. That's very similar to the shell that I use in my 4570 with that poly tip. I suppose there's other purposes for that design, but if nothing else, it satisfies the requirement that you cannot shoot with a creature with a full metal jacket round. I know a guy at work who does reloads, and I said, what if I brought you my 4570 shells? Would you reload them for me? Sure, I would. Of course, the problem that I've heard is that because a person will reload, they won't put a metal jacket around the bullet, and the bullet's going to leave more lead deposit in the barrel, and it's just going to mean more cleaning. Cleaning's an important thing here, and I didn't mention it, and I should have. I should make sure, and I did, to get a cleaning kit. They don't cost all that much. I did buy one. I'll show it to you in the video I make in part 4. Part 4 is going to be about the gear, and I'm going to show you my choices so far. You won't have to sit here and look at a slideshow. But I wanted to take you through some of the different things first. Now, that's it. The slideshow is over.